So today I'm going to be discussing the different instructional strategies and the ways that we can incorporate these strategies in our classrooms and some of the positive aspects and some of the negative aspects. So the first one is curriculum compacting, and the purpose of curriculum compacting is to shrink the curriculum. So basically, with this model, you take out what is not necessary and help the students learn what they don't know and not reteach what they already do know. So a successful model for this would be first to identify the learner outcomes, and then to pre-test the students in order to figure out what they do and don't know, and then use that pre-test information to drive the students' contracts or the activities that they'll be doing. It's important to develop extension activities too, to engage them in different level of problems and questions that they can interact with. If they don't understand something, students should be taught a mini lesson in order to help them comprehend that. And then of course, constant monitoring and records of data should be a big part of this in order to ensure that they're being challenged and that they've met the goals that you've set for them. The second is independent projects, and this is a great strategy for students because it allows them to have a choice in what they do. So it gives them empowerment and it gives them a voice. It's a project-based learning model that is independent and gives them leadership and accountability. I think this model also encourages research and inquiry. Some examples of independent projects are skits, music, dramas. They could make a 3D model using geometric shapes. They could assemble circuits, or they could simply write a research paper. One thing that's very important if you're going to use this model in your classroom or this strategy is to monitor the students and make sure that they're on task. So because it's an independent project, it requires frequent check-ins by the teacher to make sure that the students are staying on track and attaining what their overall goal and objective is for that project. The third strategy is a little hard to see, sorry about that, are interest groups or interest centers or learning centers. So this gives students the opportunity to work at their own pace. They can explore what their interests are, but in a structured way. And it's a very self-directed approach to learning. I think this is also really helpful because it allows students to work in differentiated groups. So you can group your students intentionally and have them work together on the level that they need. And they can rotate and work through these different levels as they get better as well. Some examples of learning centers could be a center where you create videos or presentations. You can have a group of students doing a tableau. I think that this is a really great strategy and it helps with collaboration, but of course you have to handle the management side of this to make sure that students are staying on task and that each student has a specific role so that one student isn't left doing nothing while the other student is doing all of the work. The next instructional strategy is tiered assignments. So tiered assignments are just like they sound, like a tiered cake. There are 3 different tiers. It requires a pre-assessment to determine these tiers, and you categorize the students based on tier 1, which is a low understanding, tier 2, which is partial understanding, and tier 3 is that they fully grasped the concept or the learning goal. So if a student is a tier 3, you have to not give them more work, but you have to make the work more challenging. So the student shouldn't feel like they are doing more than their peers, but they should feel like the questions that are being asked of them are making them think and they're feeling challenged. This is a great strategy because it provides instruction that meets the range of several students' needs, and it helps the students reach their end goals in different ways. So this really helps with differentiation. Now, this goes along with grouping. So I would use this to break down my students into instructional groups, and I would have a tier 1, a tier 2, and a tier 3 group. So I see this being most useful in instruction like guided reading. So you have different groups at different levels and you're helping them in different ways. And for planning purposes, I think that's the most efficient way to implement it, because we all know that we don't have time to come up with 3 different tiers for every single lesson that we plan of every single day. Varying questions. So varying questions are important because questioning is the cornerstone of inquiry. So these questions should be used to extend the knowledge and to help students develop new ideas. So when you ask a question, the question should be meaningful and it should help educate the student on how to think and not what to think. And I think that this is a great strategy because it keeps different perspectives alive and it helps students think deeply. And it's okay to ask new, unsafe questions and not be so robotic about the questions that we're asking. So I think this helps students kind of look at their learning in a very abstract way. Different types of questions are inquiry, complex, open, closed, Socratic, rhetorical, ordinary, and divergent. And I think that the best questions here for gifted students are the inquiry, the complex, the open questions, the Socratic questions, and divergent questions could be good too. So in order for this strategy to work, you have to set up intentional questions to ask ahead of time. So have a plan within your curriculum or in your lesson plan that tells you what type of questions you're going to ask and how you're going to ask them in that moment. Mentorships and apprenticeships. So there's different types of mentorships. We have peer mentorships, we have teacher mentorships, and then external mentorships. Peer mentorships are similar to the program like Leader and Me, which we've implemented in Collier County. Teacher mentorships are when you can assign students to a specific teacher in order to encourage them or to check in with them and make sure that they're doing okay. And then a external mentorship would be when you have somebody from outside of the school coming in to help that student and to check in and talk with that student about the work that they're doing in class, or maybe about the relationships that they're forming with their peers. I think this is important because it makes the students feel valued. However, it's important that the students are matched with a mentor that is inspirational to them and is appropriate for them. Apprenticeships are opportunities for hands-on practice, and this is so amazing if students have the opportunity to do this. It helps them volunteer and get out in the community to network within their field of interest, and it's something that's so applicable and relatable, and it's real-world experience. So I think that this is very, very important, and we usually see this offered to students who are in high school or students who are at the graduate level and they're doing things like their residency if they're studying to become a doctor. Finally, we have student contracts. So student contracts, there's different types of contracts. The first one I'll talk about is the social contract, and I really see no negative effects of this social contract. I think this is nothing but positive. What this looks like is the teacher and the students, we will set the expectations together for the classroom, and this builds mutual respect, a community. It helps people communicate with each other, and it gives the students a sense of empowerment, and they take ownership for their behavior, and their learning in the classroom. Again, for academics, it gives students accountability. It helps them set specific goals and checklists and define targets, and it gives them that ownership of their learning. A drawback to this could be that you don't have the time to check in with the students as necessary, as much as necessary. I think that this requires constant feedback and making sure that the student is on top of their contract and fulfilling the requirements within that contract. But it's great. It's a great tool because it's something that you can always go back to and refer to. So I hope you enjoyed learning about all of these different instructional activities that we can incorporate for our gifted students in the classroom. Thank you.